Good morning, everyone. This is Zoology for October 22nd. I'm Mr. Sheridan. I hope you're all having a great day. So we got a lot of exciting stuff happening in zoology right now. We are right in the middle of our cattle reproduction unit. And what we're going to do is spend today and review everything that we've done over the last 4 lessons. So we've been talking about the anatomy of female cattle. We've been talking about the anatomy of male cattle. And then we've gotten into hormones and the estrus cycle. So we're going to review those things, go back through the worksheets that we've covered over the last few days so that you can get those filled in and you're up to date on what we're doing. Before we get started, though, I want to put this out there. So next Tuesday and Thursday, so this is October 27th and October 29th, we are going to have a lab here at the school. And I'm giving you an option so that if there's students who are doing the Career Center, or if there are students who have another class at the same time, you get to choose whether you come in on Tuesday at 9 o'clock in the morning or Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we're going to do the same lab both days. And it's going to involve repro tracks that are actually out of live cattle. So you'll be able to see ovaries and put your hands on them and be able to see how this whole process works. We've also got a big dummy that you can actually start passing some rods and practicing artificial insemination. And we can talk about that. My wife's going to come in and be able to answer any questions that you have about those things, since that's what she does for a living. So she's going to be able to help us there. So again, Tuesday, October 27th at 9 o'clock in the morning, or Thursday, October 29th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Please make arrangements to come into the school. We're going to do it right in my classroom. You will have to wear a mask the whole time, but we'll have some neat opportunities for you to come in and see some cool stuff. So I hope that you can all make it for that. With that, let's jump right in, and I will share my screen. We're going to go through we're going to review some of the material that we've done over the last few days. So last week we started with we started by reading the first part of in discussing the female cattle anatomy. So as we go through these diagrams, this is going to be the most important thing that we can talk about so that you actually understand what is happening inside the female cattle anatomy. So we need to know these vocabulary words like vulva and vagina and cervix, uterine horn, oviduct, and ovary. We need to know what all of these things are, and the uterine body, excuse me. So we need to know what all these things are, where they are, so that we can identify them. And these things will be a part of a summative that we have. The other thing that we need to understand is that there is this fold called the fornix. And from what I understand, when you're trying to artificially inseminate cattle, this is a very, very important thing, because most of the time, as you're inserting your arm into the cow's rectum, you're passing a rod and you're trying to feel with your hand as you're coming through. You're trying to hit this hole. But most of the time, especially when you're inexperienced, your rod's going to end up over here in the fornix. And if you deposit that semen in the fornix, it's not going to do its job. You've got to get that rod to pass through the opening into the uterine body so that you can deposit that semen over there, and it can do its job by traveling through the uterine horn, down through the oviduct into the ovary. So we need to know those particular parts of the female anatomy. So now as we move into the male reproductive system, our job over the last that one particular day was to read this article and to discuss the actual parts of the male reproductive system. And if we go back and look at this diagram, this was one of the things that you were supposed to do. And as you can tell, there's some things that are on there's some blanks over here on this diagram that are not on this one. So if you didn't fill in every single one exactly, I totally understand, and it's no big deal. But I do want to discuss some of the basics and make sure that you got a few of these correct. So number 13 down here, I want to make sure that you understand that this is the scrotum. This is the exterior skin that actually holds the testicles, which would be number 11. Number 12 would be the epididymis. We could talk about the head and the tail of the epididymis, is where semen actually and sperm cells actually come out of the testicles through the epididymis and into and we can follow along here that this does a good job of talking about the head and the tail of the epididymis. So this is where your sperm cells are going to end up. They're going to come through this, they're going to end up through the ductus or the vas deferens, and travel up through the seminal vesicles where they're mixed with other materials to form ejaculate that actually will travel into the cows. You have your prostate located up here. Then this is going to travel through the seminoid flexor, down through the penis, and into hopefully our cow who will get pregnant. So as we look at this diagram, these are going to be a little bit different. I'd like you to identify, I'm going to call this the vas deferens. This is our prostate up here. This is going to be our penis. And this actually out here, this other exterior, I'd like for you to understand that this is the sheath that you'll actually see on females and males. Both have sheaths that, and obviously that the male sheath is actually where the external part where that penis is going to be inserted into the cow. This is also, we want to make sure that we understand that these are the retractor muscles, which are obviously working to extend the penis when aroused and to retract it when not. So if you have more questions about those are the main parts that I want you to understand about the male cattle anatomy. Then we moved into this week and started talking about hormones in cattle. If you have not watched this video, I really encourage you to go back and do that because they do a really nice job of succinctly talking about the hormones that we need to know, what order they go in, where they come from in the brain, and where they are and where they come from. So what I wanted you to do is to fill out this worksheet, and keep in mind that I'm going through these very quickly, but this will be recorded and on YouTube so that you can go back and watch this and pause and go through this a little bit at a time and fill out these forms if you haven't done so already. So we're going to start. And again, we're going to go through this really quickly. FSH is the follicle stimulating hormone. And if you reverse that, like they talk about in the video, this is really good. This is a hormone that stimulates follicles. So in short, what it's doing is it is causing those follicles to grow, and it's going to be the spot on the ovary that actually releases an egg. So estrogen is completely different. That is what is actually going to, when estrogen is released, it's actually causing the cow or heifer to display signs of estrus, meaning that she's looking like she's in heat. So she's moving quickly, her ears are forward, she's maybe has a little bit of discharge. She's definitely very active, looking to either mount other cattle or have other cattle mount them. That behavior is all caused by inflated levels of estrogen. GnRH and LH work together. GnRH is, let me make sure I get this, gonadotropin releasing hormone. So it's the hormone that releases gonadotropin. And in cows, in females, the gonads are the ovaries. So it's actually what is going to cause, when you have increased levels of gonadotropin releasing hormone and LH, which is luteinizing hormone, when those two things work together to tell the ovary that it's time to break open that follicle and release the egg. And the egg travels out and then is fertilized by the sperm. But those two hormones are what causes the cow the ovary to actually release the egg. Progesterone and progestaglandin, obviously these don't stand for anything. These are the hormones. And what they do is very, very important. Progesterone is what tells the cow that it's pregnant. It's released by the CL. So we've talked about, and Mrs. Sheridan did a great job of talking about how when that follicle releases, and this was in the video on hormones as well, that there's an opening, there's a sore, and the body has to heal itself. Well, what forms there is called a CL. It's very hard to be able to feel it when you're actually palpating cows, that you'll actually be able to feel the CL, and it's very hard. And what it does is it releases progesterone, which tells the cow that it's pregnant and that it should not cycle anymore. So if that embryo continues to grow, it's going to allow this CL to continue to produce progesterone. If the cow is not pregnant, if there's no embryo that tells the cow to keep making progesterone, then it's going to release prostaglandin. And prostaglandin actually breaks down that CL, and it actually makes it go away. So what happens is that's what causes, once that CL's gone, there's no more progesterone, so the cow cycles again. so that we start back at the beginning of this cycle and we go back through FSH, estrogen causing heat, GnRH and LH causing that egg to be released, which forms a CL, which creates progesterone. And if the cow is pregnant, then progesterone just keeps pumping through the cow, telling her that she is pregnant. And if not, then we need prostaglandin to break down that CL so that we can get her to cycle again. So that's what I need you to come up with for this document. And then what I really want you to do is go back and listen to Mrs. Sheridan's presentation on the estrus cycle. So I did include her PowerPoint in here. You can watch that. I would encourage you to, I think the video is 20 minutes long, something like that. Her talk on the estrus cycle. I think you should definitely watch that. But we can go through the worksheet that I had you do as well. So these two things, A and B, are both follicles, but you can see that A is bigger than B. So A is going to be our dominant follicle, and this would be like a secondary follicle. So there are other follicles on the ovary that are growing all at the same time, but eventually one forms that is so big that it starts just beating up on all the others, and it's taking all that FSH and it's growing and growing and growing, and it's going to be the place that actually ends up releasing that egg. Versus C, so we've got a dominant follicle, a secondary follicle, and a CL. C is actually this is what a CL looks like. It has a little bit of that yellowish color to it. It's going to have a very cartilage type feel to it. It's going to be hard, and you would be able to feel that. How many follicular waves do cows have, and how many typically in heifers? If you go back to Mrs. Sheridan's presentation, she talked about how cows actually will grow a follicle and release an egg 3 times within a cycle. And we talk about the length of the estrus cycle. It should be about 21 days. It can vary a little bit here and there, but it's about 21 days. What is the difference between estrus and estrus? I learned this yesterday. I did not know this. So I was excited about this. Okay, so this first one, estrus, S-E-S-T-R-O-U-S. This is describing the entire cycle, from all the hormones to the female anatomy to all of the things that the female body goes through during this entire process is spelled like this. That is the estrus cycle. It's all including, it gets everything in. Estrus, spelled U-S, this is just heat. That meaning that cows or heifers are moving more, their temperature is going to rise. They're going to be riding one another, encouraging other cattle to ride them. They're going to be riding other cattle. That is the estrus cycle that's usually going to last somewhere between 12 to 18 hours when they're quote unquote in heat. Is called estrus, E-S-T-R-U-S. That's the difference between those two. What day in the estrus cycle does maternal recognition take place? So what we're talking about here is we just talked about the hormones, progesterone and prostaglandin. So the body is signaling that it is pregnant around 14 to 17 days. That's when the cow has maternal recognition, meaning that it knows that it's pregnant. Therefore, it's going to keep the CL going. And that's what we're talking about here. What the ovarian structure remains present, causing a pause in the cow cycle. So that's the CL is what we're talking about. The corpus luteum is the formation on the ovary, which produces progesterone, which causes the cow to continue to stay with her calf, as opposed to if the cow's not pregnant, then she's going to start producing prostaglandin, and that's going to break down that CL. So if the cow has a CL, she's been told by her body that she is pregnant, and that usually happens between 14 and 17 days. So again, I'm going to encourage you to go back and watch Mrs. Sheridan's presentation from yesterday. I hope that you can go back through this and you can rewatch this video if you have any questions about this. If you've been following along, that was just kind of a nice review going over the documents that you'd already completed. If you haven't done any of those, then I encourage you to go back through, fill those out. And now that you kind of have most of the answers to those things, you can go back through, get those filled out and turned in. If you have any questions, as always, please email me. Remember, next week, October 27th at 9 o'clock in the morning, we're going to have a lab in class, and we're going to have the same lab on Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So don't come both times, or you're welcome to. I mean, you can come both if you want, but there will also be an assignment that you need to do on the day that you don't come into the lab. So I hope you're all having a great day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.